Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Unbalanced with me, Cerys Davage. I hope you're doing well. I'm just coming up the other end of a flu or something. I've had quite a bad week with a really bad cold, a really bad sore throat, and I was worried I was not going to be able to do this episode, and maybe my voice hasn't fully recovered. It probably didn't help that I was out last night. I went clubbing, which is not something I do very often anymore, and something I thought I was slowly going to be retiring from. But after a very quiet January, February is actually a month with a lot of birthdays. I have a couple of friends and family birthdays in February, so I have to show up for them. I have to just, get dolled up, force myself to go out, and it is always a good time, and especially if it's with people that you're really comfortable with. I don't mind them, and I actually had a very nice time and stayed a lot later than I thought I would. I think I came back at like 2:30 this morning, so yeah, we're actually a lot later filming this today, later in the day, so I've had my coffee this morning. Actually, it's probably this afternoon. But what's lovely is now we're at a point in the year where the evenings are getting a little bit lighter, so I'm hoping that it'll stay light enough for me to record this episode today. So I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all having a lovely couple weeks, just getting back into the swing of things. I've been super busy. I went to Lisbon a couple weeks ago, and the vlog for Lisbon is actually up on my YouTube. If you haven't checked that out, it went out last week. And I really enjoyed going to the Treat NMD conference. I went with Kelly Brazo of Cure LGMD2I, who sponsored this podcast, and it was just an incredible opportunity to meet a lot of medical professionals, pharmaceutical companies, researchers, patient advocates who are all researching and being parts of different trials for therapies for different neuromuscular conditions. So it was really interesting. It wasn't just an LGMD conference, which are the only other ones I've been to. This was like for all neuromuscular diseases. So yeah, for me it was just really eye-opening to see the inner workings of how these companies and researchers actually go about recruiting people for trials, recruiting patients, how they take care of the patients throughout, and all the procedures that come with that. And as someone with LGMD2I, or otherwise known as R9, it's a very exciting time for us right now because treatment has been found. So there is something called BBP-418, which is ribitol. And ribitol is a kind of like a sugar that has proven to help people with LGMD2I R9. Over the past 3 years, there's been a trial going on for ribitol in different patients with LGMD2I R9, and it's proven to be very successful, not just to slow down the progression of LGMD, but actually reverse some of it and bring back some strength, which is just absolutely incredible. Obviously, every case is different. Every person's experience with it has been varied so far, but only good things, only good results, and it's hopefully going to get approved in the US very soon. It's kind of on accelerated approval, and once it's FDA approved, hopefully it can be available to patients all over the world eventually. So obviously I'll bring you guys some updates on that, but because it's an exciting time for people with my specific subtype, it's been really cool to meet those people that have been a part of that research and the pharmaceutical companies that are funding this research. So it's been so interesting, really good conference, met some incredible people, and yeah, you can see it all on my YouTube on the vlog. I do want to announce another piece of exciting news that's been kind of going on in the background for a while. So as we know, Cure LGMD2I sponsor this podcast. They've just renewed their sponsorship for another year. And BridgeBio is also sponsoring this podcast now. I love their team so much. Their team are absolutely incredible. They do so much, fiercely passionate work for patients of LGMD, and they've done a lot of research into a cure or a treatment for 2I. So they're both very special companies that mean a lot to me and are very close to mine and my family's hearts. For those of you who checked out my appearance on the On Rare podcast that's hosted by BridgeBio, they flew all the way to Wales to meet me and to film with me, and I had an incredible couple of days filming with them, and their content is available on their website and socials, and so is my episode with them on the On Rare podcast. So I've had a really, really good relationship with BridgeBio for a couple of years now. Their team is absolutely incredible, and their patient advocates are just so passionate about what they do. So I couldn't be prouder to announce that they are also sponsoring this podcast. I will be linking their websites down in the description of this episode and every episode to come, because they are sponsoring the entire podcast. So if you ever want to check out BridgeBio's website and find out a bit more about what they do, please check it out, because they are an incredible company that have done so much that I can't list them all right now. So go check them out, and also check out Cure LGMD2I's website. They are a charity that's doing some incredible work, and they would really appreciate some donations if you can. Following on from the last solo episode that I did, I talked a lot about trying to navigate a work-life balance, and you guys know I'm a super busy person. I'm still on the learning curve of trying to figure out what a good work-life balance looks like, and trying not to burn out in the process. I'm at the point where I'm just trying to do as much as I can, because I'm worried that, maybe my disability will limit me in the future, or, I feel like, while I'm still able, I should just get out there and do as much as I can. But it is a case of reminding myself that I do have time, and I'm still young, and I need to learn to pace myself, otherwise I'm just gonna burn out and it's not gonna end well. So I decided that today's episode could be dedicated to navigating work life, and this is a really big topic. It's not one that I think I can cover completely in one episode. So after this episode, if you feel like you've not gotten enough about this topic, then please let me know. I do want to continue exploring this topic, but we've got to start somewhere. So I obviously want to talk about my own experiences and what I've learnt from being in the working world with a progressive disability. And I also want to share some things that a lot of my followers have very kindly shared with me. I asked a couple of questions on my Instagram story about what occupations different people had, and also what they wish they knew before starting work, and any piece of advice that they might have to share. So I've got a lot going on here from other people. So I'm hoping that this episode won't all just be all about me, because this is a topic that looks different to everyone, and I'm aware that there are people that are more progressed than me and less progressed than me, or older, have more life experience, and maybe, in different healthcare systems, different countries. So I think it's important to try and, get as much information and educate ourselves on these different versions of a work-life balance as possible. I think I should start with probably the biggest question that I get asked when it comes to working with a disability, and it's job interviews, and should I disclose my disability when I go for a job interview, or should I disclose it after I get a job offer? Which is a huge question, because I know that, obviously ableism still exists, and internalized ableism, and I know that a lot of people that are wheelchair users have rocked up to interviews where the interviewee didn't know that they were in a wheelchair, and they haven't had much luck to get a job since going to interviews using their mobility aids. And you see a lot online about people that are trying to test out whether it is to do with a disability that they're not getting jobs. So they would go to job interviews, some in wheelchairs and some without, or whatever. And the results are always very interesting, but I feel like we have to recognise that we are in a situation, especially here in the UK, where it's really difficult to find jobs right now. And, a lot of us have dreams, we have aspirations, and it can be difficult to chase that if there's no opportunities out there. And I feel like they're even more limited for people with disabilities, because we are living in such a fast-paced world now. Hustle culture is a massive thing, where companies want people on top of their physical A game, and maybe are able to get as much out of that person that they employ as possible. And I think that's where maybe we go a bit wrong in society, because that's just assuming that disabled people can't do as much as a non-disabled person, but that's absolutely not the case. And maybe that's a whole other topic, but I do think that your feelings are totally valid if you do go to a job interview and you're not sure whether or not to disclose your disability, because it is a huge thing, and especially if you're not comfortable talking about it. Why should you feel like you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone even more than you already are doing a job interview to talk about your disability? So I personally always disclose it. This podcast is actually a great thing for me to show off about in job interviews, to say that I host and produce my own podcast and raise awareness of different disabilities. But I only talk about that. I don't talk about the fact that I have a disability. I don't mention what it is, because I don't think it's important to me getting a job. So in terms of personally, I only really mention the podcast and the work I do to raise awareness. From there, they can check out my podcast and know everything about my disability if they want to. But maybe if I didn't have this podcast, I probably wouldn't talk about my disability. I think I do talk about it a bit in my CV as well, my resume. And again, that's just because of the podcast. So the only time I would disclose my disability is if I had to fill out a form and it asks about, your ethnic background, what country you live in, all your declarations, your sexual preferences, and then whether or not you have a disability. If you think about it too much, maybe it is a bit intrusive to ask all these questions on, I was going to say on a first date, on a first impression basis, like just getting a job interview. It's kind of like a first date, isn't it? Like, do I disclose my disability to people I've just met? So I think it can be quite intrusive or scary. But I would say definitely don't feel the pressure to disclose a disability before you even get a job or even at the job interview. The only thing I would say is if you do get offered a job, then maybe it's a good idea just to let them know about it so that they can make the right adaptations for you. And I think if you don't mention it then, and if you turn up to work and the place isn't accessible, or the chair's too low, the chair doesn't actually suit your needs, the building isn't wheelchair accessible, things like that, then by then maybe it's kind of too late, or it's just maybe going to be a bit more awkward asking for those adaptations, because they might be like, well, why didn't you tell us earlier? But I know that there is that fear of, if you do disclose that, then they're going to think of you differently. They're going to see you in that light. They're only going to see you for your disability. And especially if you've just met these people, it can be really intimidating anyway. And you want to make a good first impression. And the last thing you want is to be known as the disabled person. And that's definitely a feeling that I've had a lot. I don't want to be known as, the disabled girl. I know for a fact that I'm the only physically disabled person in my very small team. I work in the BBC at the moment. It's a very, very big company, obviously very diverse, a lot of different disabilities all across the company. And because of that, and because they're a very well established, very big company, I know that the building is totally accessible. I know I'm really safe there. I'm in safe hands. And if anyone's thinking of applying for a job at the BBC, I would really encourage you to do it, because they really look after you there, with any disability that you have or mental health condition or anything. They're really, really accommodating, and they have that training in place to know exactly how to help you. But I know within my small news team, I think I'm the only physically disabled person there. So, I'm happy to be the token disabled person to ask advice or ask questions, or, I've obviously had a chance to report on a lot of different disability related stories, which is really cool. But I was definitely worried that I was going to be known for my disability at the beginning. I think I've definitely proven now that I'm a lot more than that the disability doesn't define me. It doesn't really mean much day to day. I think because my building is completely accessible, I don't feel disabled from day to day, because I drive my adapted car, I get to work, I use the lift, the elevators, and that's pretty much it. I don't have to come across any steps or anything. I think the only thing I felt maybe a little bit weird, not necessarily weird, but it was just a little bit uncomfortable maybe, when I first started at the BBC. And also I had this conversation in the previous place I worked at, which was a media company after I graduated, was about fire evacuations. And this is a big thing to establish when you start. And even though it's very unlikely that you will have to evacuate due to a fire, there'll be fire drills, there'll be, things that'll catch you off guard, and it'll be good to know exactly what the procedures are for that. So I was asked the question, do you need a chair? Those like chairs that people carry down the stairs. I didn't think I necessarily needed that because I can still do the stairs, but I guess the risk of, especially if everyone's going to like rush out, there is a very high risk of me falling. So I think in my first workplace, I had just assigned some people to help me walk down the stairs very slowly. And I think that's still the case now. Like in my current job, I've assigned people to, or people have been assigned to help me down the stairs, but I don't know what that looks like. I think that might be to carry me or to just give me an arm. Because if I do hold on to someone's arm and then I have another hand on the rail, then I'm okay. We did have one fire drill, or I don't even think it was a drill. I think it was like a genuine thing. I don't know actually know what it was. It wasn't a fire, but we all had to rush down the stairs, and luckily I had a friend with me who really understands my condition, and she just grabbed onto me and like helped me down these few flights of stairs. So that was really good, but especially if my disease is going to keep progressing, I need to know my options, and I need to know that I'm going to be safe in that sense. So that's another thing, and that's another good reason why you should let your company know about your disability when you do start. And even if you don't need any adaptations done, just so that they have it on file, because I think that's really important. If you have a lot more appointments than usual, they will be really understanding of that. I think you get more sick days. Someone told me this recently. It might have been in one of the DMs that I got that I'll be reading out later, but I think you get more sick days if you have a disability. And also the team will just be more understanding. My job is mostly a sit-down office job, but there are times where I go out filming, and I'm camera trained, I'm camera operated, like I can go out and film people, and obviously I'm very experienced with this podcast as well, but I can't carry all the kit. Like the work tripods are really, really heavy. The cameras and all the equipment are really heavy. So I need someone else to carry them for me because I can barely walk as it is, let alone with all this extra weight on me. So I think that's been really good because, everyone knows about my disability, but they don't make a big deal of it. And that's when you're in a good workplace because they're just willing to help you. And I think there's nothing like that. It's just so nice to know that there will be people there to help you and to understand you and who wants to look out for you without making it weird, without asking questions or being intrusive or making your whole personality about that. Someone did message me with a lot of really good bullet points to do with this topic about disclosing, and they said when you're not believed because you look fine, what do you do? And that's very, luckily I guess I'm very fortunate to not have had a situation like that, but I've been in a lot of situations outside of work where I'm not believed that I have a disability. And to that I say they are not a great place to work, I'd say. Then you want to work with people who understand you and who don't doubt your disability, who trust you, I think it would be very strange if you end up working somewhere that don't want to accommodate your needs, because that will just make them look like a terrible company or a terrible employer. When it comes to making reasonable adjustments, I can only really speak from my own experiences, but I'd say the adjustments that have really helped me have been, having a certain chair that fits me, like an ergonomic chair. I know I can order some things through the company, like an ergonomic mouse, an ergonomic keyboard, and they will be like fully supportive of that. Also, like everything we do is on the same floor, but if we happen to have a meeting upstairs, someone will walk with me to the lift to make sure that I'm not alone and to not make it weird, like that everyone's ditching me or that I'm ditching them. So that's been really nice as well. It's just those little gestures, and I think if you're someone who doesn't have a disability, who works with someone who does have a disability, those little gestures to just like be there for them and not ignore the disability really, really means the world, because it shows that you're willing to help, you're willing to learn, and you're not like weirded out by it, because it's not a weird thing, you know? Even though I'm the only disabled person in my small team, like I said, the rest, like the whole company, there's a lot of us, like young disabled people, but I'm happy to be that representation for them. They know I'm an open book, like I will talk about anything to do with my disability. I think it is important for my colleagues or for any co-workers to have their horizons widened and their perspectives challenged through getting to know someone with a disability, especially if it's an invisible disability. This is their chance to ask questions and to really understand the life of someone with a disability, and that will just make them a more empathetic person all round. So it's a bonus, really. I don't mind being that person that can educate other people on disabilities, because I feel like I'm doing my bit, you know? My throat is getting so dry, so please bear with me. But I do want to talk about working from home. I think it's interesting because a lot of people love working from home, because, you know, they're in the comfort of their own home. Maybe they live with someone who can support them whenever they need any help, and they're in that kind of safety bubble. Especially someone with a disability, you know, it's scary to be in the outside world if you haven't got someone with you that knows exactly what you need or how to help you. But I think my worry as maybe an extrovert, like I love meeting new people, I love being with people. My worry is, you know, if I did end up doing a full-time job from home, like completely from home, would I feel kind of excluded from society? Would I feel really lonely? Like, I can't go a whole day just like chilling at home by myself. Like, I need to talk to someone. I will FaceTime a friend or a family member. I will go out and see someone like for a coffee. I'll go shopping just to have an interaction with some random strangers. Like, I have to be with people. And it's frustrating because I know that I might end up in a situation where I'm working in an office or I'm working a very physical job, and I'll have to give that up because my disability is getting to the point where it's too difficult for me to keep up with that lifestyle. But I don't want to miss out on those connections with people. I don't want to miss out on, you know, just a normal working life just because of my disability. And I don't want the default to that, and I don't want the only answer to that to just be working from home, because then that's it, you know. I feel like once you go to work from home, you're not really going to go back. In my case, in my first job, it was a mix of working from home but mostly going into the office, and I didn't mind like that extra little day in the week to just work from home and have a chill day where I didn't need to put on makeup and I could chuck some laundry on in the background. Things like that is really useful. But I really, really valued going into the office. I really loved just being with people, having that small talk. And I know a lot of people are anti kind of corporate jobs right now, anti 9-to-5 jobs. I think I'm seeing a lot of people value their time, and want to put more time into themselves a lot more. So I don't know if it's like a selfish thing, but you know, a lot more people are traveling, a lot more people are moving to different countries to work because maybe the quality of life or the pay is better. And I totally get that. Like, we're in a very weird time where there's not a lot of jobs going or the pay is rubbish. So maybe the answer for that is to move away. Like, I know a lot of people from my country, from Wales, are moving to Australia right now to get some work because the quality of life just seems better out there and the pay is better apparently. So if you see me in Australia in a couple of weeks, don't judge. I'm joking. But I actually don't mind that corporate life. I don't mind being in an office with a bunch of people that, you know, we spend a lot of time with and we get to know really well. I don't mind that small talk. Like, I love asking people what they've been up to on the weekends. I think if I were to ever do a job that was like mostly from home, that is something I would really, really miss, because even though working from home might be better for me with stabilizing my energy levels, I would definitely miss that social aspect, and I would probably go crazy if I didn't have at least one meeting from home where I could just talk to another human being. Maybe I'll do a lot more episodes from home because at least I'll have someone to talk to. But yeah, I guess my main point is, you know, disabled people want to be a part of society. We want to be like everyone else. We want the jobs that we have worked really hard for, have studied hard for, that we've strived for since we've been young, or whatever it is. Like, we want those jobs. We don't want to just resort to an admin work from home job just because that's the only option and that's the only thing that our disability will allow us to do. I think there are so many options out there, and working from home shouldn't just be a default. However, if you do have a disability or don't, and you enjoy working from home, I'm so happy for you. It is such a privilege to be able to work from our homes now. Maybe I haven't done it enough, but I love the idea of closing my laptop at 5 p.m. and being like, that's it, like that's my work done. But I also found it weird that you worked in the same place that you lived and had like the rest of your life. I do like the office for work, and then I can come home and you leave your work at the door or whatever it is. So I do like that aspect as well. I feel like there's pros and cons for both, but it's important for people to not have to give up work that they're really passionate about just because of a disability that they can't help, to just end up working from home. Like, there should be adaptations to help keep those people, keep us out there, keep us in society. Don't ostracize us just because we have a disability and the only answer is a work from home job, that's gonna marginalize us even more. Keep including us, keep us in conversations, keep making adaptations for jobs that maybe are a bit physical, but tailor those jobs to us. We shouldn't have to give up on our dreams just because of our disabilities. Speaking of chasing our dreams, I saw a really good reel by Reese Witherspoon the other day, and she was saying, like, it was a really short reel, but it really stuck with me. She said, everyone has dreams, so don't chase your dreams because you might not actually be good at your dreams. Chase your talents, find out what you're good at and chase that. Chase your talents, not your dreams. And I really, really like that because, we can all have unrealistic dreams. And I think, growing up, we'd all have in school, like astronauts or footballers or whatever. But obviously, we're probably not going to end up in those roles. So I think that is a really good thing to learn and to keep with us, to chase our talents, not our dreams. Speaking of jobs and different roles within society that disabled people can do, I asked a question on my Instagram asking people, what do you do? And I had some amazing replies. I mean, the replies themselves weren't amazing, they're just jobs, but it was so nice to see the options that are out there and all the different random jobs that people have. I really, really enjoyed going through these. So I'm just going to list them all out. They're all going to be anonymous, but they're fun to share. We've got editor, legal assistant, admin. Sat at a desk all day means I'll never be out of work, but not ideal sat all day. Ooh, I need to get back to that. Someone said physiotherapist, paralegal, civil servant, accountant, an artist, a podcaster, working in data entry, merchandising, a carer, an architect. We've got a graphic designer. Someone, my colleague said, I sit next to you. No, thank you, I love you. A scientist or consultant. Someone works at a daycare. Someone works in higher education. Civil servant, we've got a couple of civil servants. Construction underwriter, I've never heard of that before, that's cool. Adult social care commissioner. Employability advisor. Health advisor, occupational therapist. Love to all the occupational therapists out there, they're incredible. Working in finance for civil service, a full-time customer service support, working from home, creative freelancer, communicator guide, working for an energy company, working from home as an administrator for a charity, love that, communications work, discrimination investigator, local council in a housing department chasing rent, front of house at theatre, working in politics and public affairs, administrative work at a starting electric car factory, founder of a drinks business, shout out to Jed, disability claim processor, neurodevelopmental practitioner diagnosing autism in children. Wow. And then my editor commented, I edit your podcasts. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Amazing. Thank you so much to everyone who just sent in what they do. And I think a lot of these jobs aren't ones that maybe we've heard of growing up. They're not ones that I probably still don't know much about now, to be honest, but it's so cool to see that there are so many different jobs out there, not just like the classic ones that we're taught about in school. I think we all end up in jobs that maybe either didn't exist when we were in school, like my job didn't exist, working in social media, like that wasn't a thing when I was in school, or maybe just jobs that we hadn't heard of that are very much needed in society. So there's always going to be options that you just haven't explored yet. So that is kind of a comfort to know. And then I also asked the question, what is something you wish you knew before starting work? And these are great pieces of advice for anyone that's maybe struggling in the workplace or struggling to find jobs or to advocate for themselves in work, because self-advocacy is a huge thing as well. It's so important to advocate for yourself in work. Hopefully these will give you guys a bit of a boost. The first one says, asking for adaptations is okay. We've got to find a carer that has remote work or the ability to work for yourself one day. I mean, self-employment is always a great option. You know, you're in control, but that's a lot of pressure riding on your own shoulders, and it's something I've been thinking about as well. Someone said, I didn't realise how much my disability would affect me in work. I thought I had grips on it. It's okay to be vulnerable and open about your disability and not ashamed. If it's the right company, your disability won't make a difference to how they view you. Absolutely. We've got a lot of things about asking for help. We've got help is available. We've got it's okay to ask for help if you need it. Someone said reasonable adjustments are there for a reason. Someone said most big firms have far more support networks in place for disabilities than they let on. Someone said that I can ask for what I need, and some folks actually genuinely care and want to provide support. I'm so happy that, you have that in work. That's so important. Make sure you have a personal emergency evacuation plan. I found out the hard way being stranded 10 stories up at work when the fire alarm went off and everyone was rushing off, leaving me. It was at a time most people didn't know about my disability. Now I have an evacuation chair, thankfully. Wow, that sounds so scary. And that's, again, why it's important to just disclose your disability. And I'm not saying you have to do it to everyone, like the whole team. Just your boss, just your line manager, or one trusted person that has the control to help you in those kind of situations and to make sure that those adaptations are in place. Someone said, it's always best to join a union if possible and engage with occupational health early on. Especially if the waiting times are really long, you may as well just get on the list now and just get that help that you really need. Someone said, just because someone says it's disability friendly does not mean it actually is. That's interesting. I think it is a two-way street, You need to ask them what adaptations they can put in place for you. You need to ask them what their building is like, how accessible are they really? And that's really important to know, and it'll just be a good peace of mind for you as well, so that when you do start work or when you do turn up, you're okay. You're not going to be stranded and you're not going to be caught out in that way. Someone said staff disabled networks can offer peer support. Someone said you don't need an official diagnosis to have reasonable adjustments. That's very true, especially considering how long it takes to get diagnosis for some conditions these days. It's unreasonable to have to only have an official diagnosis letter or something to back that up. Like, you should just, your experiences is enough. Someone said, be open and honest from the outset. Make the most of your story. It's a lot harder to balance everything, ambition, travel, expectations, than I thought. That's true. It has been a proper learning curve, and like I said, something I'm still trying to learn and get to grips with is finding that balance and still wanting to be a big part of work, a big part of society in that way, but also realising that maybe your energy levels are limited and your physical capacity is limited as well. Someone said, the exhaustion in so many forms I never would have thought before starting work. Someone said how important ADA accommodations are, and I'm going to quickly look up what ADA accommodations is, because I think it's an American thing. ADA accommodations are adjustments to job tasks, work environments, or policies that enable qualified individuals with disabilities to apply for positions, perform essential job functions, and enjoy equal employment benefits. That's interesting. So it's the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's what the ADA is. There we go. For all you American people watching me quickly research that, I'm sorry, but now I'm educated. I have a lot more responses. The impact that the environment can have on your mental health, good or bad. That's very true. Like, your work is going to be most of your life, you know, especially if you work a full-time job. So I think it is really important to make sure that that work environment is where you want to be and where you want to spend a lot of your time, because it is most of your life, you know. Someone said, offices can be hard, some doors are heavy fire doors, and your only accessible loo may break too. Meetings can be hard with low chairs and people staring at you rising from chairs if you can. I definitely struggled with that in meetings. You know, everyone jumps up quickly afterwards and I take ages getting up from the seat and I have to lean on a table to get up. But I think now people just get used to it and they just don't bat an eyelid anymore. Like, it's just normal, really. So I think because everyone knows I've got a disability now, it's not really a weird thing, and they're not going to be like, are you okay? Because they know that's just how I get up from a chair. It's fine. They just need to let me do my thing. Someone said, I'm in Cardiff and I feel like there's a really good culture here for accessibility as a city, but not always translating to working in Cardiff. Very interesting. As a Cardiff gal, I would like to know more. Please comment your thoughts and let me know what you mean by that. Someone said, an international environment doesn't necessarily mean inclusivity. A company from a whole different country, even continent, has different corporate values and different habits, which is hard to implement in our European social and legal systems. This is true to my specific situation, but the learning from it is universal. Never be afraid to stand up for yourself and fight for your rights. Very true, and I love this. Thank you for sharing that. Someone said, Paid ag ymddiheuro, which is Welsh for don't apologise. I mean that should be a general thing anyhow, but especially at work. For years, I used to apologise when advocating for myself or creating firmer boundaries on what access support I should have. I used to apologise for the inconvenience to other people. But screw that, no one should have to feel the need to apologise for ensuring access or accommodations are made, and as soon as I learnt that and deeped it to my core, I'm not only able to better advocate for myself as a disabled person, but I'm also able to advocate for others too, in situations where I see lack of access, not speaking on behalf of someone, of course. I really like that. That's so important, and I really, really appreciate you for sharing that. Someone said, hey Cerys, one thing I would share is that people will see more than your disability. They see someone who is brilliant and capable, and that's what employers look for. Preach! Focus on your strengths and they will shine through. Also, keep advocating for yourself, as people do forget. Make things work for you and find those hidden things that employers can do to support you and fight for them. I have flexible working hours, study days, and a standing desk to help me. I was diagnosed while working for a current employer, and all my team could not have been more supportive of me, especially a manager who came to rescue me when I got stuck on the loo in the early days. Oh, that's incredible, and just proof again that, you know, this is so important to advocate for yourself. And that can also mean asking for flexible hours, or, you know, if you can't travel very easily, to be able to work from home. It's so important. One last comment. Super important to be open with employers, because they have to make reasonable adjustments for you. My life became a lot easier when I stopped trying to work like everyone else and accepted that my brain and body have different requirements and definitions of rest. Which I think is a great one to end on, because I think there is an obvious theme here. Advocating for yourself is really, really important, and asking for reasonable adjustments. I honestly take a shot for every time you hear that word. It's so important to voice your needs, because especially if you have an invisible disability, people won't know what you want. That's the classic thing with advocating for yourself. You're doing it so that people know how they can help you and what you need. I really, really want to thank everyone who sent in their stories, their experiences, and their pieces of advice to share with everyone else today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to send those messages. I think this is such an important topic, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface today. So if there's any specific topic you'd like me to delve into within this massive umbrella of navigating the working world, please let me know in the comments of this episode, and I would love to do some more content like this in the future. Some more, I mean, this is just relevant to everyone, isn't it? So I would love to continue this conversation, and I hope you enjoyed this episode anyway. I've got some exciting interviews coming up, so make sure you stay tuned for that, and make sure you're following the podcast or subscribed wherever you're watching the podcast or listening. Don't forget to rate the podcast 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because that really helps me out, and to like the episode if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you so much to Cure LGMD2I and BridgeBio for sponsoring this podcast. Your support means the absolute world to me. I appreciate you guys tuning in every episode to listen to some of these weird and wonderful rants that I have and some incredible stories that I share. So stay tuned for the next episode coming very soon. But until then, have a lovely couple weeks. Bye.